Good morning, friends. Stephen Benin with Israeli News Live. Today is June the 3rd, 2025. And you're looking right on your screen there. This is some of the information coming out. Operation Spiderweb, a visual guide to Ukraine's destruction of the Russian aircraft, as they show Ukraine making the attack on deep inside of Russia on multiple bases there. And quite frankly, no way possible Ukraine could have ever carried out this attack. But what I'm really more concerned about is why and who's really behind it. And why would we provoke a sleeping giant? Why would Ukraine, or for that matter, the United States, who definitely was behind the intel and the sophistication of carrying out such a provocative attack inside of Russian territory on their aircraft that are used for nuclear strikes, why did we target those and for what purpose? Well, quite frankly, there's far more to do with this than just us striking Russia and showing that we're able to do it deep inside the heart of Russia. And in this video right here, it shows too where Russia destroys the very launch vehicle or the 18-wheeler that was used to launch the drones deep inside of Russia there, and to cause all this chaos. But what's it really for? Well, if you remember Eduardo Hudo, who I reported about now for the last several years, spoke about the Ukraine war. It was used to pit the Russians against the Ukrainians to kill off the Slavic peoples. But it's not just that. There's more devastation coming. There's other things such as, let me see if I can find some of these clips for you here, that the intent that, like in the case here on Christians for Truth, Rabbi claims Israel will replace America as next world superpower, and Jews need to embrace their destiny. In this article right here, and many of these teachers of the Jewish faith there talk about America going down. And we're going to go to Gregory Sachs' interview here in just a moment there, where he talks about what the late, General Wesley Clark, when General Wesley Clark brought out in 2001, the memo that was dropped on his desk about taking out 7 nations in 5 years. And even though General Wesley Clark never talks about it being an Israeli war, it's really what it is. Today, in fact, on John Moore's program, The Roundtable, Steve O'Neill, a nuclear physicist, shared on the program his views, and he was quite blunt about what Israel is doing in the world and how Israel is really controlling what's happening around the world, and how that the Zionist Christians have really fell victim to supporting the atrocities that are happening globally. I mean, as a Christian, you should begin to really start take inventory as of why are you supporting this? Since when does Christ ever support the wholesale annihilation of every single person on the planet practically? Well, they're coming to your state next. Here it says here, Mr. Shmuel Eliyahu, the chief rabbinate of Safed and a member of the Israeli Rabbinate Council, claims that we are witnessing the beginning of the end of America as a superpower, which will pave the way for Israel to take its place in the guiding civilization forward. Could you imagine a nation that claims it's going to guide the world forward and they genocide Gaza? That's the guiding light. Genocide. Genocide becomes the guiding light. It says here, it is with great sadness that we can remember this event. Storming of the U.S. Capitol is part of the process of American descent from the stage of history. It's a sad moment, but it happens. Eliyahu wrote in a piece for Arut Shiva. That's Arut 7. guy points out that throughout history, many empires and superpowers have fallen as a result of moral crisis. Whether it was Rome, Egypt, England, Russia, no civilization can endure once there is a breakdown of its ethical foundations. He believes the time has come for Israel to fill the vacuum of the leadership left by the falling America experiment, as he calls it. One can't help but mention the collapse of England, France, once regarded as among the four world governing powers, he writes. Who remembers them today as such? They collapsed upon themselves like all of Europe, where moral values and justice have been replaced with political correctness. Family values have been replaced by hedonism. Well, you got to remember who is the one that causes the moral collapse of the nations. Yeah, it's that very cultish group amongst the Israeli elite that bring about that with their Frankist doctrine. It believes that if you bring about a lot of evil in the world, then the Messiah will come. So they perverted the American culture through movies, cinema, everything else you could possibly imagine to corrupt the values. They brought in fact, they're the proud supporters of the uh, rainbow flag movement. Very proud supporters of that. Why? Because they want to bring about the moral destruction, not only of the United States and other nations around the world, but then turn around and wipe the people off the map. Yeah, because remember, under those Noahide laws, you get wiped off the map. So it's many things like this that we have that is just truly mind blowing in itself. There, I'm going to be bringing you to some other from a video I did here a year ago, where I share some of the insights with these different teachers and what they had to say about conquering certain nations, because it's a debt they're basically paying back certain peoples. Like, for example, the Gazans, the people of the Palestinians of Gaza found themselves being called Amalekites. Well, Israel decided they're Amalekites, so kill them all. That's the way they think. How demonic and how immoral can you possibly get? You totally negate the blood of Jesus Christ, then, as a Christian, if you support such an issue. Let's listen into Geoffrey Sachs, what he has to say.
In 2011, to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of the Israeli government that stretches back more than 25 years. Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011. We have a name for this program. It was Operation Timber Sycamore. The United States, together with other countries in this region, trained fighters, especially jihadists, including the ones that just took power, to overthrow the regime. This created chaos. 600,000 dead in Syria in a war that has gone on for 14 years.
All right. I want you to hold that in mind. We'll come back a little bit more to Gregory Sachs here in a moment. If you recall, back in 2018, years ago, I covered extensively the Syrian conflict. I had one of the best sources for Middle East conflicts at that time that you could possibly imagine. I still am in contact with him. I won't mention his name, but he is from the Middle East. And I knew everything, even before the news, even sometimes a week before the news published it, I was able to be on top of it. Aaron Erdem, was one of the guys, a parliament member of the Turkish government, along with I think Seymour Hersh and one other journalist, a girl journalist there that was killed in Syria, that was exposing what was really happening. Or excuse me, she was not in Syria, but in Turkey. It was exposing the cooperation between the Turkish government, the CIA, Hillary Clinton, of course, Libya, and smuggling the sarin gas from Libya into Turkey to be used against the people by the ISIS militants inside of Syria and blame it on Bashar al-Assad. Listen to this.
May not necessarily agree with the bylaw's contents, but accusing some people of hypocrisy is insulting and hurtful. I am kindly inviting you to use an insult-free language, please. Here, within the borders of the Republic of Turkey, some people are misappropriating the country's resources and betraying our trust. That's what Aaron Erdem says. That's Aaron right there.
They're not translating everything he says.
Our Minister of Internal Affairs is here at this moment, even though this issue is not within his field. I wish I could address my question, and he speaks about the Justice Minister, Bekir Bozdag, yesterday when he was here. And by the way, Mr. Bozdag is the other MK member of the Turkish parliament that as well knew about what was happening inside the country there. As you all know, many children were murdered with sarin gas in the Middle East. Okay? Notice that emphasis he places on that. Many children were murdered with sarin gas in the Middle East.
I want to pause for a moment. I want to let that soak in for you, because this is exactly why the United States, Donald Trump included, are willing these children in Gaza to die at the hand of Israeli war machine and provide the bombs to kill these children with. Conservatively, there are reports that more than 20-some thousand children have been killed. As I was interviewing one Palestinian journalist there recently, the number is far greater than what they're telling you. We're going to get into that in just a moment, because believe it or not, it was actually Piers Morgan here that finally woke up. I can't believe that Piers didn't know. Maybe his network finally agreed to let him say the truth about it. You know, I guess what happens is those type networks, they know it's really genocide, but they can't say it yet. You might hurt Israel's feelings. They might lose some support with Israel. You know, I don't get it, right? You know, look, I come from Jewish parents, but I can't sit back and as a Christian, especially as a Christian, and sit here and condone this atrocities that are taking place there. Let's listen to Piers for a moment. He's going to talk a little bit about this here. He's got the IDF officer in this meeting here. And that guy, what a joke he is. He's done more propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, you know, I'll get you to respond, but, you know, when you look at what Smodrich said last week, that was on camera, the intent is crystal clear as far as he's concerned. And when I put to the Israeli ambassador to the UK in a very heated interview that we did last week, that he was effectively articulating a form of genocide, indisputably, because he wanted to clear out every Palestinian from Gaza and take it for Israel. She emphatically denied what we'd all heard with our own ears. She then emphatically denied that Israel had killed any children. She then told me exactly how many Hamas terrorists the IDF had killed, 30,000, but she couldn't tell me even a ballpark figure of how many children had been killed in the process, which I found a quite extraordinary response, where she knew one figure very precisely almost like the IDF only count the Hamas terrorists they kill. They don't count any of the civilians they kill, which I just do not believe. And if it is true, that seems despicable to me. But she was in complete denial. And, my original question for you before you responded to what the former Prime Minister said was, when you see a policy of a blockade which can only be construed for what it is, which is a policy of starving the people of Gaza, and we're now seeing these terrible scenes where food arrives and thousands of Palestinians race and fight each other to try and get it. And I don't know who killed them and wounded them the other day. I know it was reported by Reuters and others that it was IDF. The IDF emphatically denied it. They said it must have been Hamas and so on. We don't know, but the main reason we don't know, Jonathan, which is another of my massive bugbears about this, is that the IDF still refuses to let international journalists go and do their job and verify this stuff for themselves, unlike in every other war zone there's ever been. So for a number of reasons, this Israel government's policy right now has completely lost people like me that were very prepared, as you know, and as Cenk knows, for a long time to defend Israel's right to defend itself. This has gone way past defending the people of Israel. This has moved now. Piers, this has moved now to taking control of Gaza, kicking all the Palestinians out, starving civilians if necessary for the last 3 months. And when it comes to the killing of children, there have been an estimated, I don't know the exact number, but an estimated 20,000 or more children have been killed in this war so far. For Israel to deny that is to deny the obvious, isn't it?
Okay, so a lot to unpack. I would like to respond to what Cenk said before, but I think you touched upon an issue which I think is key, and that is the whole the issue of intention, one issue, and the second one being the humanitarian one. Now, I'll remind you and Cenk, and I'll remind everybody watching, that Israel was not occupying 5 points in southern Lebanon, was not deploying troops in southwestern Syria along the Israeli border, and definitely did not have any troops inside Gaza on October 6th. We were attacked from all those fronts by various terrorist organizations that very clearly sought to conduct genocide of Israelis in their homes. And I think
that happens to be the Israelis themselves. You don't have a stand down policy of 6 hours conservatively, 8 hours more likely reality. IDF sources that I have inside of Israel that have actually clearly stated that. YouTube made me take the video down because they take the channel down because they protected all this massacre that was going on and what narrative got out to the people. It's a shame because I had some of the best intel in the world on this situation there. But always deflecting, always making excuses, always saying that the children are hiding behind the Hamas and therefore we got to kill the kids in order to get to Hamas. That is the most irresponsible, ridiculous statement that will ever come out of anyone's mouth. It absolutely makes zero sense whatsoever. But the real issue comes down, like Smotrich says here, Gaza will be totally destroyed, population concentrated into a small area. Ultranational minister says population will be totally despairing and want to leave the strip. Also predicts West Bank will be annexed before end of the government's term. Far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich shared his vision for Gaza Strip on Tuesday, predicting that within a half a year, the population of the territory would be confined to just a narrow swath of land, with the remainder of the enclave totally destroyed. That's what this guy here says, right? I'm dumbfounded, totally dumbfounded by this stupidity of Americans to continue to follow such nonsense. Let's go real quick to Gregory Sachs. I want you to listen a little bit more to what he has to say before I continue on, because there is an agenda. And we're next. We're next. Listen in.
The outcome of this war is what the CIA wanted back in 2011. which is that a jihad group would take power in Syria
And they did.
after being armed by the United
Trump
States.
lifted sanctions to make them stronger.
The reason I want to be clear about this is that we will not have peace in this region until we have public diplomacy that is based on real diplomacy, not on CIA operations. And we will not have peace until Israel stops its militarization of the entire Middle East. Because the Syrian war is just one of 6 wars that Israel has promoted, including in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. We had the list, actually, from Wesley Clark back in 2001, when he was handed a paper in the Pentagon that the goal was 7 wars in 5 years. The only war that hasn't taken place yet, to Netanyahu's great consternation, is the U.S. war with Iran, which Israel is still trying to instigate to this very day. So the Syrian war is part of a regional tragedy. We have tragedy in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, South Sudan, and Libya that I put at the hands of the United States government and its ally Israel, because none of these wars had to happen. These were all wars of choice. They were all wars that came from the idea of regime change operations, that the United States would determine which regimes operate in which countries. We'll never have peace in this region if outside imperial powers like the United States are dictating the terms to this region.
And of course, dictating those terms, as Gregory brings out there, by Israel's command. All right, let's take a look at more sinister. And maybe before I do that, I'll go back to Aaron Erdem. Aaron Erdem, let's see what he says here real quick.
The man's a humanitarian. Turkish parliament member. There were various accusations about who uses sarin gas in our media. My question is about the Adana's chief public prosecutor. Investigation case number 201, 2013-351, 2013-139, indictment 2012-120. Don't worry, the prosecutor is not from the parallel organization.
Well, they get mad.
And by the way, they shout him down like crazy. He is not very loved by the other parliament members there.
And by the way, Aaron, when he does this, he brings in the complicity of ISIS and this minister, not President Erdogan, but when he was prime minister, I believe. Back there, let me listen.
Investigation about this. You know, friends, you got to understand, there are many in military intelligence, according to the reports from Seymour Hersh and other investigations, were arrested and put in prison. But don't forget, Obama and Erdogan made an agreement to do it.
Now, Obama and Erdogan made the agreement to do it. And if you notice at the beginning of what Gregory Sachs said in that interview, or the part that I play, it's almost 3-hour long interview, Gregory actually says in there it was Obama that made the decision to take out Bashar al-Assad. Said he couldn't stay one day longer. Listen.
The prosecutor ordered the telephones of those suspects to be wiretapped, which also stated in the indictment. You know what's wrong, though, Mr. Aaron Erdem? As much as I appreciate him, he doesn't know this is a CIA, MI6 operation going on. Mr. Minister of Justice Bozdag is also well aware of the details.
Anyway, I'll post this in the description for you below, the link to this video. I clearly made the case, Bashar al-Assad needs people, but they made you believe that in the American media, right? They made you believe it. So let's see here. Let me just see one quick other one with Jeffrey before we move on.
The only way to have peace in this region is if this region is determining its own future,
I agree. Not who?
not outside powers. And Israel could never do these wars on its own. These are American wars. America provides the financing, it provides the military backup, it provides the naval support, it provides the intelligence operations, it provides the munitions. Israel couldn't fight for one day without the United States backing. Israel could not be committing a genocide in Gaza without the United States' full operational complicity. I don't mean political complicity, I mean direct, daily, operational complicity. This has to end. This region has been divided for 100 years, first by the British Empire and then by the American Empire.
And if you'll notice, that actually followed right after the releasing of the Schofield contaminated note by a Jewish state with supremacy. People are just not paying attention to what's really going on. Okay, let me take you to a video I did a year ago, and I want you to see what some of these rabbits have to say.
With our people and geographically take the Caspian Sea as called Azerbaijani language by the Khazar Sea and approach to different cultures versus is together says that of course the culture it continues. And as I was brought to another place and showed me the place where mountain Jews were killed in 1918, 3,000 mountain Jews were killed. Dashnaks, nationalists. By the way, the Dashnak nationalists are the Armenians that were nationalists living in Armenia that carried out these brutal attacks. And like I said, in a moment, I'm going to show you the Jews were just a little small fraction of the people they were massacring over in Azerbaijan. All right, just a small number compared to the Azerbaijanis.
And by the way, though, if you notice what this guy is saying here, and he's a rabbinical leader for the Jewish people, that's their master, not mine. And he clearly identifies that I've actually got videos where he talks about this, that they are Khazarians.
But he's going to focus on this because Jews were killed. But what I'm blown away by here is that he is admitting the Khazarian mix of the Ashkenazi Jews. And I've always said this as well. When people want to bash it and they say, oh, they're Khazarians, they're not even real Jews. No, they still have a Jewish bloodline mix in there, but it's very well watered down as a result of the mixing of the Khazarian bloodline that they got as Arab advances. There, the caliphate is very often Islam was carried around by force, and that's why common past and common present and a common future, if we, let's see, Iran, which is near the border, 600 kilometers between Azerbaijan and Iran. All right, and we'll kind of stop right there. I was just kind of blown away, one, that he admits that they're Khazarians, but second, he went and did the killing and their social base and contributed to the Armenian robbery and violence, focusing their attention on the Armenian question. Collaborator of the Dashnak clique, Armenian Bolshevist, communist politician Stefan Shumayan became the ideological inspirer of the Dashnak atrocities of Baku, pulling out the theses of the establishment of the Soviet power in the region. Shumayan and his gang subjected to genocide as many as 12,000 1,000 Azerbaijanis in the spring and summer of 1918 in Baku, the districts of Baku province. After the Baku genocide, Shimon told the survivors of the March Hell, we had to destroy all of you.
Now, this is Israel genociding those that they consider to be the ones that in historical context have killed Jewish people, right? You go further. This is not I go into a lot of things on here, but let's listen a little bit more here.
Totally wiping out the Jewish people. Time. I think I've got this part here, Mark. Let me see what we have on this part here. You understand, burying the country, they own country a little differently. Think if we reason, if we strike at the Palestinians have been rising for a long time to create two states, territory in which it is now the only state of Israel. If we hit the infrastructure and hit the territories where our lives, well, let's say, so the neighbor who should be a state was created next to us, we squeeze them out of the region, then through for a while, there will be no one left, and talk about the state simply, otherwise there's simply nothing to talk about. No talking. Who will build with? The state will not only not infrastructure, and what's most interesting is not that there will be a people, and the question will be automatically ends. No state cannot exist without people.
You see what he said there? Now, I did this video, well over a year ago. This was, I can't quite see it. I'll try to find the original on this. But they're already talking about genociding the Palestinians completely. Not just from Gaza, mind you, but from the West Bank as well. Okay? Both Gaza and the West Bank. Let me see if I can find here. Hang on. One other one.
Heck it up. Okay. Israel. Let me see. Let me get to that spot. The news program.
Here we go.
Rabbi Fink there. And he's going to tell you that they're going to pay. There's come a time to pay for their crimes. That man, Bogdan, and his bandits that came back in, they slaughtered 300,000 Jews. That was a crime against the Jewish people, without a doubt. This is also another reason why, too, you find that, as I mentioned to you in another broadcast, Poland is planning on taking over Western Ukraine when this war is all said and done. Well, you may understand better because if you know anything about Bogdan Klemensky, and I'll just quickly show you a little. Let me see. I want to get to the part though where he comes. Here we go. Here we go. Let's finish up. The bill must be paid sooner or later. The time comes and the creditors come. It's naive to think that hatred, and especially blood, will not be collected. Of course, it will be collected, simply. All right. Now, he says, of course, it will be collected.
Now, I'm going to pause it for there, and I'll put the link for you to be able to listen to for yourself. But when he's talking there, this is Mr. Fink, and you can put that name in front of there if you want. He's a Russian Orthodox teacher. And when you look at what he says there, on multiple cases, multiple conflicts, multiple times where the Jewish people have suffered or died, he said the blood has to be collected. Well, you got to remember the Spanish Inquisition that the Catholic Church did, forced conversions of Jews to Christianity on pain of death. So many different things that have happened to the people down through the years. This is the reason why they want to wipe out Christianity. And they're doing it two ways. One, by getting you to become a Noahide, and you no longer believe that Jesus is the true Messiah. In fact, even now in Bibles, we just bought a new Bible recently, in the book of Matthew, at the very top where they write a little commentary, it says, Matthew was a Jew writing about a Jew to the Jews. They're doing away with the identity of Jesus Christ, of who he really is, and taking him away from you. And you're going to watch and let it happen. Because, as Jesus said, the blind are leading the blind, so both of you will fall into the pit. I pray that you wake up, friends. I really do. And what's going to happen now with this issue with Russia? Russia is going to be used, not necessarily this particular time, but somewhere along the way. If you remember, one time I was told that Putin would be taken out because he's not doing enough. They'll get so angry, they'll take him out of office, and they're going to put in somebody that's really radical to carry out the attacks against the United States. But now Putin is starting to get the evidence to be able to do so. But he's just playing right along with it. Remember, his cousin was Rabinovich. And that, my friends, is according to what Eduardo Hudo had said. And I forget where I had that at there, but I actually saw that in one of the videos I was doing. Maybe it's even on. Oh, gosh, I forgot about that guy there. Let me back up for a moment. That's another one. I want to play that real quick for you before we end this broadcast here. I also want to remind you, too, on post, my wife sent me this here, the two-gun Cohen, the Chinese general who swung the UN vote, the story of the only Jew, probably the only Westerner to become a general in the Chinese army. This is from 2021 right there. You know, the control is global, friends. It is global. And even in our own U.S. military, the support for Israel and doing Israel's bidding is at an all-time high. Let's listen into this little clip here as well. This is an Israeli rabbit. I want you to listen to him.
Most terrible of all wars. But it is a war religion between Islam and Christianity. There again, remember what the other...
So, pitting Islam against Christians, just like in Azerbaijan. Israel armed the Azerbaijanis to go kill the Christian Armenians because they hold them responsible, and in this belief here, reincarnated, that they're the ones that killed the 3,000 mountain Jews over in Azerbaijan. Let's see what else we have here.
The Malbim Rav Meir Levit ben Yehiel lived in Europe 150 years ago, and he was a very sacrilegious commentator, recapitulating here all the events. This war will serve to make the enemies of Israel pay. And on the other hand, after the Third and last World War, those who survive will demand a leader who will put the order. Who will be this leader? Well, it will be this man wiser than King Solomon. In Israel, there will be no democracy.
Oh my goodness, I just realized where he's at.
In Israel, there will be no democracy. It'll be a theocracy. Friends, the evils that are coming are not even funny. They're not even remotely humorous. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel now that is called The Biblical Evidence for the Modern State of Israel. I probably should retitle that a bit. I'm taking those things that Schofield titled The Biblical Evidence for a Modern State of Israel and showing you what those scriptures really said, what was really taught, what was believed by the church, and only in the last 100+ years have people been duped into believing the lies. Please wake up, friends. Please wake up. Support the broadcast, please. IsraeliNewsLive.org is our website there. Supporting online is really the way you can do that. We appreciate your help. And two, with as much insanity going on in the world right now, I think the EMP shield is a very wise idea. I have it right on our website. You use the user code INL50. You save $50 when you do that. You click right there to go straight to the website to order. At that point, they still have their Liberty Day sale, which is also another huge savings for you. So if you're ever going to get one, I encourage you to get it. You can get it for your house. You can get it for a ham radio. You can get it. And by the way, every one of those are important. We did a documentary with them. They explain all the reasons for these things. Ham radios, the antennas and stuff, you can get hit by lightning, not just an EMP strike. Now they've made it to where they can protect against the solar flares, and that is a big issue as well. So think about that. Please, definitely though, support the broadcast. We here, donate online. It's always the fastest, easiest way, especially with us in transition right now as we set up our new PO box here in Texas. You can see though, because it'll take me some time to get everything situated. So we thank you. God bless you, and thank you for listening.